The elevator doors slid open on the 47th floor of Sterling and Associates, and there he was, Joe Harlan, blocking my path like a goddamn storm cloud, his broad shoulders filling the frame, arms crossed over that pristine navy suit that screamed, "I own this place already. You lost, kid." Intern bullpens on 12. He sneered, his voice a low rumble that hit me like a sucker punch, green eyes narrowing as if I'd personally offended his entire bloodline. I dropped my coffee, black, no sugar, just like my mood, and watched it splatter across his polished loafers, the hot liquid steaming up like my rising fury, because in that split second, I knew this summer internship in Manhattan was going to be a war, and Joe was the enemy I'd never seen coming. I was Jordan Reyes, fresh out of NYU's business program, 22 and hungry for a shot at the big leagues. Sterling and Associates was the pinnacle, a Wall Street powerhouse where dreams were forged in spreadsheets and shattered in boardrooms. I'd clawed my way into this unpaid gig through sheer grit, late nights in the library, schmoozing professors, begging for recommendations. My abuela back in Queens had cried when I told her, clutching her rosary like it was a shield against the wolves of finance. "Mijo, don't let them eat you alive," she'd whispered. Little did I know, the biggest wolf had a jawline that could cut glass and a smirk that promised annihilation. Joe was 23, a year ahead in the program from Columbia, with that effortless WASP pedigree that made everything he touched turn to gold. Old money from Connecticut, lacrosse captain, the kind of guy whose dad probably summered in the Hamptons and wintered on skis in Aspen. From day one, he treated the internship like his personal kingdom. He'd saunter into the bullpen, our cramped corner of fluorescent hell, with his entourage of trust fund bros, doling out backhanded compliments and stealing credit like it was pocket change. That first coffee spill set the tone. Joe didn't yell, "Oh no, that would be beneath him." Instead, he knelt down, mopped up the mess with a handkerchief monogrammed with his initials, JH, like some pretentious hotel, and fixed me with a stare that said, "You're nothing. Reyes, right? Try not to drown the firm on your first day." The bullpen snickered. I forced a laugh, but inside, I was plotting. By week's end, I tripled my cold calls, landed a pitch meeting with a mid-tier client, and watched Joe's face twist when Mr. Hargrove, the senior VP, praised my initiative. "Touché, asshole." But Joe was relentless. He'd sabotage in subtle ways, accidentally forwarding my emails to spam filters, whispering doubts to the other interns about my sloppy metrics. One night, during a team-building happy hour at some overpriced midtown bar, he cornered me by the dartboard. The place reeked of stale beer and ambition, fairy lights strung like nooses over the crowd. "You think you're hot shit, Jordan? This isn't some diversity quota spot. Prove it, or go back to flipping burgers." His breath was scotch warm, his tie loosened just enough to show the hollow of his throat. I wanted to deck him. Instead, I leaned in, close enough to smell his cologne, sandalwood and sin, and murmured, "Watch me bury you, Harlan." The tension simmered through July's swelter. Manhattan baked under a relentless sun, turning the subway into a sardine tin of sweat and regret. We'd clash in the copy room over printer jams, in conference calls where he'd interrupt my points with polished alternatives that were just rehashed versions of mine. But there were moments, fleeting, unwelcome, when the hate cracked open to something raw. Like the time we pulled an all-nighter prepping a merger deck, holed up in the empty boardroom with takeout tie and the hum of the AC. Joe shrugged off his jacket, Sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle from God knows what privileged sport. I caught myself staring at the way his fingers danced over the keyboard, precise and unyielding. He glanced up, caught my eye, and for a beat, the air thickened. "What?" he snapped. "Nothing," I lied, heat crawling up my neck. "Get a grip, Jordan. He's the enemy." By August, the rivalry peaked. The firm announced the Rising Star Award, a mentorship with Hargrove and a fast track to full-time offers. Joe and I were the frontrunners, our names whispered in the executive suites like a duel at dawn. We both pitched for the same client, a scrappy fintech startup out of Brooklyn. Mine was bold, data-driven projections with a social impact angle, nodding to my roots in a neighborhood where banks were predators, not saviors. Joe's? Slick, numbers heavy, all flash and no soul. The presentation room was a pressure cooker, Hargrove, 2 directors, and a dozen suits staring us down. I went first, nailing every slide, my voice steady despite the knot in my gut. Applause rippled, genuine, not the polite patter Joe always got. Then he took the stage. He dismantled my pitch point by point, calling it idealistic fluff, while weaving in his own as the pragmatic powerhouse. It was betrayal in boardroom drag. He'd read my notes, twisted them into knives. When Hargrove leaned toward him at the end, murmuring approval, I saw red. Storming out, I slammed into the stairwell, fists clenched, tears hot and furious. He stole it. He always does. That night, I drowned the loss in cheap whiskey at a dive bar in Hell's Kitchen, the kind where drag queens sling shots and the jukebox plays Springsteen on loop. The internship was ending, and so was my shot at redemption. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Stairwell. Now. JH heart pounding. I dragged myself back to the office, the city a blur of neon and noise. He was there, under the emergency light's harsh glow, tie askew, hair wrecked like he'd been raking fingers through it. "You think you can just rewrite my life?" I snarled, shoving his chest. He didn't budge, solid as oak. "What the hell, Joe?" His eyes, those damn green eyes, flashed with something fractured. "I had to. Hargrove was gunning for you anyway. Said your pitch had heart, but no edge. I gave it edge. For you. Bullshit." I laughed, bitter and broken. "For me? You're a thief, Harlan. Always have been." He stepped closer, too close, the heat of him invading my space. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm scared shitless of watching you burn brighter than me." His hand gripped my arm, thumb pressing into the pulse at my wrist, and the world tilted. His lips crashed into mine, not soft, not tentative, but a collision of all the hate we'd bottled up. Rough, desperate, tasting of mint and malice. I shoved him back, gasping, but my body betrayed me, leaning in for more. We didn't speak after. The internship ended in a haze of awkward nods and stolen glances. I got the offer, full-time analyst, starting fall. Joe vanished to some Ivy League grad program, whispers of a family firm takeover. I told myself it was over, buried the memory under case studies and craft beers with my queer-found family in the village. But New York has a way of circling back, like the subway loops you can't escape. 3 years blurred by in a whirlwind of deals and deadlines. I climbed the ladder at Sterling, from analyst to associate, trading my abuela's empanadas for kale smoothies and power lunches. The city shaped me. Sharper suits. A loft in Chelsea with exposed brick and a view of the Hudson that whispered you made it. Dates came and went. Tattooed baristas. Activist lawyers. All fire but no anchor. I came out fully sophomore year. But love? That was a luxury for straights with trust funds. My heart stayed locked. Key tossed in the East River after that stairwell kiss. Joe? A ghost. Until the merger. It was a crisp October morning in 2028. Leaves turning the parkway into a postcard. When Hargrove dropped the bomb in our weekly huddle. Sterling's acquiring Harlan Ventures, Old Line Investment out of Boston. Synergies across the board. Jordan, you're leading integration. Their golden boy, Joe Harlan, heads their ops team. Make it seamless. My coffee turned to ash in my mouth. Joe. Here. Now. The bullpen buzzed, but I tuned it out, staring at my screen like it held the secrets to survival. Seamless? With him? That afternoon. The joint team landed. Suits from Beantown, accents clipped and confident. And there, striding through the glass doors like he owned the merger, Joe Harlan, 31 now, broader in the shoulders, salt and pepper at his temples that made him look like a goddamn Silver Fox CEO. His eyes found mine across the lobby, and time snapped back. Coffee stains, stolen pitches, that kiss like lightning. Jordan, he said, extending a hand that swallowed mine, grip firm but laced with something electric. Long time, Harlan, kept it cool, professional armor locked tight. But up close, he smelled the same, sandalwood, now mixed with leather from his briefcase. We shook on it, collaboration, no drama. Bullshit, even then. The next months were a masterclass in tension. Integration meetings turned into battlegrounds, his conservative strategies clashing with my innovative pushes. Data doesn't lie. Reyes, your disruptive models are roulette wheels, he'd argue, leaning over the conference table, tie brushing my sleeve. I fire back. And your ivory tower tactics? They're why half of Boston's workforce is unionizing against you. Sparks flew. But underneath, that pull, undeniable, like magnets fighting alignment. Off hours blurred the lines. Late nights at the office bled into diners on 3rd Avenue. Greasy spoons where we'd dissect deals over pie and black coffee. One evening, after a brutal all-hander where his veto killed my pet project, we ended up at a speakeasy in the Flatiron. Dim lights, jazz humming low, bourbon burning smooth. The alcohol loosened tongues. Why'd you do it back then? I asked, swirling ice in my glass. The pitch. The sabotage. Joe's jaw tightened, fingers tracing the rim of his tumbler. I was an asshole. Scared kid playing king. You saw through it. Made me feel small. He met my gaze. Bro. And that kiss? I replayed it 1,000 times. Thought you'd hate me forever. I swallowed hard, the bar's haze wrapping around us. I did. Still do. Sometimes. The hate had morphed, twisted into hunger. His knee brushed mine under the table. Accidental? No. I didn't pull away. We fell into it slow, then all at once. Stolen touches in empty elevators. His hand on my lower back, guiding me out. Texts at 2 a.m. Can't sleep. Your fault. Dinners that stretched into walks along the High Line. City lights painting us in gold. Joe opened up cracks in the armor. His family's expectations. The pressure to marry some blue-blood debutante, hide the truth he'd buried since boarding school. I dated women to fit the script, he confessed one night, rain pattering our window. But it was always you in my head, Jordan. That fire. I let him in, piece by piece. Shared stories of growing up queer in a Catholic household. The fear of disappointing abuela. The grind to prove I belonged. Sex came fierce and tender. Our first time in his hotel suite during a Boston trip. Bodies colliding like we'd been starving. He mapped me with hands that knew boardrooms but trembled here, whispering my name like a prayer. Jordan. God, I've wanted this. Mornings after, coffee in bed, his head on my chest. It felt like home, the kind I'd never dared dream. But love in the cutthroat world of finance? It's a liability. Whispers started, Harlan's playing favorites with the merger lead. Joe's team grumbled. Mine eyed me sideways. I ignored it, lost in the glow. Until the betrayal hit like a freight train. It was mid-December, holiday lights twinkling prematurely, when I stumbled on the email chain. Buried in a shared drive, innocuous folder labeled Legacy Assets. Joe's signature at the bottom. Forwarding my confidential client projections. My crown jewel, the algo I'd built from scratch to a rival firm. Price. A 7-figure consulting gig for Harlan Ventures post-merger. Sabotage. Round 2. But this time, it wasn't just a pitch. It was my career, my trust, shattered. I confronted him in his temporary office. Door locked. Voice a whip. How could you? After everything. The words choked out. Hot tears betraying me. Joe paled. Scrambling. It's not, Jordan. Listen. My father's forcing a board vote. If I don't deliver this edge, they pull funding. It's survival. Survival? By gutting me, I laughed. Hollow. You're still that stairwell prick. Using me, then tossing me aside. He reached for me, desperate. I love you. This doesn't change. Love. I recoiled. This is possession. Get out of my life. Joe. I stormed into the snow-slicked streets, chest heaving, the city a cold blur. Merry fucking Christmas. The fallout was biblical. I reported the leak anonymously. Hargrove's investigation was swift, surgical. Harlan Ventures' stake in the merger tanked. Joe's golden parachute yanked midair. He resigned in disgrace, slinking back to Boston with his tail between his legs, tailcoat by boardroom vultures. Sterling promoted me to VP, a bitter laurel. Toasts at the office party rang hollow. To Jordan, the closer, champagne fizzed, but my veins ran ice. Abuela noticed, overposole in Queens. Mijo, your eyes are storms. What steals your light? I couldn't say it. Love, that fragile bird, crushed in my fist. Instead, I threw myself into work. 80-hour weeks. Anonymous hookups in dimly lit clubs where names didn't matter. The city pulsed on. Indifferent. Times Square's billboards screaming joy while I navigated ghosts. Joe tried reaching out. Voicemails deleted unheard. Emails archived in oblivion. I'm sorry. Let me explain. Sorry didn't rebuild bridges. It just salted the ruins. Spring thawed the ice, but not my heart. A client retreat in the Hamptons. Ironic, that playground of the elite, forced reflection. Beaches stretched endless, waves whispering regrets. One dawn, hung over on the deck of our rented McMansion. I scrolled old photos, that internship group shot, Joe's arm slung casual over my shoulder, smirk hiding the spark. What if I'd listened? What if hate hadn't blinded us both? Back in the city, fate or karma intervened. June's heat wave baked the asphalt, turning subways into ovens. I was en route to a pitch when my train stalled in the tunnel, lights flickering like a bad omen. Commuters groaned, but I froze. Across the car, wedged between a hipster and a suit, Joe. Thinner, shadows under his eyes, but those green depths unchanged. Our gazes locked, the jolt of recognition hitting harder than the delay announcement. He didn't approach. Neither did I. But when we spilled out at Grand Central, he fell into step beside me, silent as the throng. Up on the street, under the kissing statue's shadow, he stopped. Jordan. Please. I kept walking, pulse thundering. Not here. We ended up at a forgotten coffee shop in Murray Hill, neutral ground, formica tables scarred by decades of spills. He looked wrecked, freelance gigs barely paying, family estranged, the merger fiasco a scarlet letter on his resume. I lost everything, he said, voice cracking. But the worst? Losing you. I was wrong, selfish, terrified. My father. He weaponized my secret. Said I'd never lead if I didn't man up. I chose fear over us. The barista called orders. Steam hissed like my anger. And now? What? Absolution. No. His hand hovered near mine. Not touching. Just truth. I love you have since that godforsaken internship. The tension, it was me fighting it, fighting myself. You're the only real thing I've ever had. I wanted to bolt. Instead, words tumbled. The ache of betrayal, the nights I'd traced his ghost on my sheets, the fear that vulnerability was just another word for weakness. We talked for hours, coffee cold, walls crumbling. When he leaned in, tentative, I met him halfway, a kiss soft as forgiveness, tasting of second chances. Rebuilding was no fairy tale. Therapy sessions in Soho, his and mine, unpacking the baggage, my imposter syndrome, his internalized poison. Dates were tentative, picnics in Central Park, where he'd pack tamales from my recipe, laughing at my burnt attempts. Sex reignited slow, exploring scars, not just skin. You're beautiful, he'd murmur against my collarbone, fingers threading my hair. All fire and grace, but conflict loomed, ever the shadow. Fall brought Joe's redemption arc, a startup pitch in Silicon Valley, green tech with a social bent, my influence, undeniable. I flew out for support, but en route, doubt gnawed. What if he bolts again? The demo was electric, investors buzzing, Joe's passion lighting the room. Post-pitch drinks at a rooftop bar overlooking the bay. Champagne bubbling. He dropped to one knee. Not with a ring too soon, too loaded, but with a promise. Marry me, Jordan. Not the polished versions. The real us, messy, unbreakable. Tears stung. I pulled him up, kissing him fierce under the stars. Yes. But no more secrets. Back east, life wove tighter. Abuela met him over Sunday brunch, eyeing his loafers before declaring, he has kind eyes. Mijo. Keep him. His folks, a frosty standoff in Connecticut. His mother sipping martinis while his father blustered about family image. Joe stood firm, This is my family now. The rejection stung. But we built our own queer brunches with my crew, his lacrosse buddies thawing over beers. Yet the climax brewed in winter's grip. January 2030. A blizzard blanketed Manhattan. Flights grounded. City hushed. Joe's startup closed, funding millions. Headlines in TechCrunch. Celebration called Our Loft. Catered Thai. Friends toasting our engagement. But midway, a call shattered it. His father. Stroke in the night. Critical. Joe paced. Phone clenched, white-knuckled. He hates me. Why now? I cupped his face. Because life's a bastard. Go. I'll hold the fort. Boston was a frozen hell. Hospital corridors echoing with beeps. His mother a ghost in pearls. Joe sat vigil, reading board reports aloud like bedtime stories, as if metrics could mend the rift. Days blurred. I joined via red-eye, curling beside him in the waiting room, his head on my shoulder. I can't lose him like this, Joe whispered. Not hating me, the elder Harlan rallied. Enough for a bedside reckoning. Frail in his gown, tubes snaking, he fixed Joe with watery eyes. Son, I was wrong. About everything. No grand apology, just a nod to the photo on his phone. Us at the High Line, arms linked. He's good for you. Joe broke then, sobs muffled in my neck. Forgiveness, partial, painful, but real. We flew home lighter, the storm yielding to sun. Wedding planning ensued. Spring affair in the village. Rooftop vows under cherry blossoms. No tuxes, linen shirts. Bare feet on grass. Vows were raw mine. You were my nemesis. My mirror. My heart. His. I fought you to find myself. Now, we fight together. The ceremony hummed with love. Abuela's tears. Friends' cheers. A drag queen officiant with sass for days. As we kissed, confetti swirling, the city skyline framed us, jagged, resilient. Ours. Years later, in our Brooklyn brownstone, Joe chasing our adopted pup while I stir paella. I catch him watching, that same green-eyed wonder from the internship. Tension, transformed to tether. Nemesis to husband. In America's grind, we carved grace. Wait, no, that's not the end. Life's not a neat epilogue. It's sequels with teeth. 2 years post-vows. The real storm hit, not weather, but the kind that tests welds. Joe's startup exploded, valuation soaring, acquisitions stacking like Jenga. He jetted coast to coast, boardrooms bowing to his vision. I, anchored at Sterling, now senior VP, but the merger scars lingered, doubts whispered in performance reviews. Great ideas, Reyes, but can you scale? Jealousy crept insidious, a vine choking the garden we'd planted. Late nights alone, I'd scroll his Insta, Joe with venture capitalists in Napa, all teeth and triumphs. Captions like disrupting the status quo green tech revolution. No tags for me, intentional or oversight in the frenzy. Friends noticed my edge. Babe, you're spiraling. Talk to him. I did. Over a forced date at our favorite Italian hole-in-the-wall in Little Italy. Candlelight flickered on Chianti bottles. The air thick with garlic and grudge. You're gone, Joe. Even when you're here, you're plotting the next deal. He frowned, fork pausing mid-bite. What? I'm building us the house in the Catskills. College funds for the kids we'll adopt someday. Kids? You mentioned that once. Drunk at the wedding. My voice cracked. Feels like I'm the side project. His eyes flashed old fire. Side? You're my North Star, Jordan. This grind, it's for the life we dreamed. Dreams sour when deferred. The betrayal echoed. That email chain. Trust fractured once. Now, paranoia painted shadows. A work trip to Chicago overlapped his SF layover. I imagined him entangled in some tech bro fling, burying vulnerability in hookups. Ridiculous? Maybe. But the internship ghost lingered. He's a thief of hearts. The breaking point came in a heatwave haze. August dog days turning our loft into a sauna. Joe home early, miracle, bearing flowers and apologies for a canceled anniversary dinner. Client pulled out. But hey, more time for us. He grinned, that boyish charm cracking my resolve. We made love on the rug, slow and reclaiming, his whispers grounding me. I see you. Always. Post-glow. Phones buzzed in unison. Mine Hargrove. Urgent. Sterling's poaching rumor on Joe's firm. His board alert. Leak traced to an insider. Panic surged. Who? I demanded, but guilt twisted my gut. Weeks prior, in a jealous haze, I'd vented to a colleague vague details. But enough? No. Couldn't be. Investigation unfolded like a noir thriller. Forensic IT dives. Tense calls. Fingers pointed inward, Joe's COO. Ambitious climber with a grudge. Relief washed me, but not clean. In the fallout, Joe confronted the betrayal head-on, firing swift, then turning to me in the wreckage. I doubted you for a second. That's on me. We therapy dove deeper. Couple sessions in a sunlit office overlooking Bryant Park, unpacking the imposter in both. We're equals, our counselor urged. Not rivals, Joe nodded, squeezing my hand. No more games. Transparency clause in our vows. Fall mended us stronger. We volunteered at a queer youth center in Harlem, Joe mentoring on entrepreneurship, me on resilience. Watching him with wide-eyed teens, sharing his out-of-closet scars. Pride swelled. You're changing lives, I told him later, over rooftop beers as leaves turned. But humanity's arc bends toward light through dark. Winter brought by Kitsch's whisper. Abuela's diagnosis. Pancreatic. Stage 4. The call shattered Christmas Eve. Tinsel mocking our cheer. Joe held me as I wept. Raw and raging. Why her? She's fought for everyone. We rallied. Specialists in Boston. Experimental trials funded by his windfall. Abuela, fierce as ever, gripped our hands in her hospital bed. Mount Sinai's sterile hum a cruel backdrop. Me, Joe, you've built a beautiful life. Don't let pain steal it. To Joe, you make him shine. That's familia. She slipped away in spring. Cherry blossoms mocking the void. Funeral in Queens. Marimba music. Stories of her firebrand youth. Joe spoke, halting, heartfelt, earning nods from cousins who'd eyed him wary. In the cemetery's hush, under oak's dripping petals, he vowed, we'll honor her. Every day, grief forged us. A foundation fund in her name, scholarships for immigrant kids chasing dreams. My promotion followed, managing director, glass ceiling cracked. Joe's firm stabilized, ethical audits now mantra. We adopted twins, boys from foster care, chaotic bundles renaming our world papa and dad. Yet the romance endured, laced with drama's spice. Anniversaries sparked. That 5th, A surprise trip to the internship's bar, darts in hand. "Remember when I wanted to punch you?" I teased. He pulled me close, breath warm. "Best decision I never made." Kiss deepened, the past a prologue. In America's vast tapestry, flawed, fierce, we wove our thread. From nemesis to husbands, tension to tapestry. Human, utterly. Decades turn. 2040. Brooklyn's our bastion. Brownstone alive with chaos, twin boys, now 8, tearing through with soccer cleats and questions. "Papa, why'd you hate Dad first?" Luca asks, gap-toothed grin over pancakes. I ruffle his curls. "Hate's just love in disguise." Mijo. Joe chuckles from the doorway, coffee mug steaming, silver threading his hair like wisdom's badge. "Your papa exaggerates." "I was smitten day one." Lies. Sweet ones. The boys giggle, scampering off. We steal a kiss, quicksilver in the morning rush. Life's rhythm. School runs, board meetings, date nights at jazz dives where sax whales echo our early fire. Sterling merged again. I helm East Coast Ops. Joe's green tech empire spans continents. Solar farms blooming in deserts. Success? Hard won. Shared. Vacations in the Catskills. Cabin by the lake. No signal. Just us. Fishing poles idle. Bodies tangled on quilts. Rediscovering in whispers. But drama's dog doesn't die easy. 2042. A whistleblower scandal rocks Joe's firm. Falsified emissions data from a rogue supplier. Headlines scream, "Harlan's green dream tarnished." Reporters camp our stoop. Luca wakes crying from nightmares of bad guys. Joe ages a decade overnight. Pacing nights. Guilt etching lines. I built this on truth. If it crumbles, I anchor him, then we rebuild. Together, crisis management kicks in my wheelhouse. We testify before Congress. Joe unflinching under Klieg lights. Accountability isn't optional. We're owning this. The fallout? Fines. Restructuring. But trust rebuilt brick by eco-brick. In the quiet after, he breaks. Couldn't do it without you. My nemesis turned North Star. Romance reignites in embers. A vow renewal under those village blossoms. Friends graying but grinning. Vows evolve. Through betrayals and boardrooms. I choose you. Rings exchanged anew. Simple gold bands worn thin by time. Humanity's core pulses. We mentor at Abuela's Center. Now a beacon for queer Latinx youth. Stories shared. Mine of internships and imposter aches. Joe's of closets and comeuppances. Kids like us, eyes wide, find mirrors in our scars. One dusk, rooftop perch, city humming below. Joe pulls me close. Everything changed because of you. Wind tousles us. I trace his jaw. Nemesis to this? Worth every fight. Fade to now. 2045. Porch swing in the burbs we've semi-retired to. Philly fringe. Green enough for the boys' fort. Joe's writing memoirs. I'm consulting, savoring slow. Grandkids? On horizon. Luca's engagement sparking tears. Legacy? Not empires, but echoes. Love defying odds. Tension transmuted to triumph. In America's grand, gritty saga, from Manhattan grind to hearth's glow, we proved rivals can rewrite fates. Hearts, once at war, beat as one. Human, heroic, home.